Hello, everyone. Good morning, good evening, good middle of the night, good middle of the afternoon, depending on your time zone. Uh, Welcome to Community Central Tech Thursdays. This would normally be Tech Tuesday, but we had some scheduling issues and we wanted to have this particular one anyway. It's been more than a year since we introduced Open Data Hub on Community Central, and a lot has happened in that year. Plus, a lot of you may not have been here for that original session. And so we wanted to have Open Data Hub on the show again. As a refresher or as information for those of you who are joining Community Central for the first time, I wanted to remind you of how stuff works. You are welcome to use the chat for any kind of chatting that you want to use. But if you have a question for the show, then please use that Q&A pane on your screen. And please do ask questions. We're allowing like 10 to 15 minutes to answer them. So please do ask questions. Ask them that Q&A pane. Upvote other people's questions if you like them. And at the end of the presentation, we will take the most upvoted questions on screen. So with all of that, and by the way, this is being recorded. So if you missed something, it will go up on YouTube later, probably actually tomorrow. So with that, let me introduce Anish and Chad of the Open Data Hub project, and they are going to explain what Open Data Hub is and what they have been up to. So take it away, guys.
Okay, great. Yeah, I can see your screen now. So, hey everyone, my name is Anish Asthana, and I'm a software engineer. I've been with the AI Center of Excellence for about 2 years now, and I'm focused on working on the Open Data Hub and running it at scale internally for Red Hat.
And I'm Chad Roberts. I've been a Red Hatter for a little over 9 years. About a year of that, I've been here in the AI COE, working with Open Data Hub and the AI Library project.
Right, great. So I'll just give a quick overview of what we'll be discussing today. Right, we'll be starting off with how the Open Data Hub started internally at Red Hat, followed by kind of a brief overview of what it is and how we're using it internally. Finally, we'll do a deeper dive into some of the implementation details, the things that have changed over the last year, as well as what's coming next. Right. So exciting, yeah. So initially, when we started the Data Hub, we were aiming to solve some internal problems at Red Hat around machine learning. Instead of each team maintaining their own infrastructures and developing their own support mechanisms for AI, we decided to join force internally to create the Data Hub as a central place to share data as well as to run your AI and ML workloads. This way, users could be freed from worrying about the complexity of these stacks and really just focus on delivering experiments and gaining insights with those experiments. Next slide. So early on, we found that data scientists and data engineers have very different requirements for their tools from what DevOps engineers require, right? They prefer workflows that are mostly UI driven. They hate using the terminal, and perhaps most importantly, they expect the tools to include all their favorite and sometimes very specific ML libraries, right? Like everyone has a different tool they like using. So as our data scientists continued using the Data Hub internally, we started building out the Open Data Hub project based on addressing their needs and the challenges they were facing. We soon realized that some of the challenges we were facing were actually faced by many of our customers with their own AI ML teams. For example, right, like for any given ML AI project, you have a lot of people collaborating, right? Like data scientists, data engineers, DevOps folks, your business function. And sharing of like your resources, your models can be very complicated if you're just used to your own kind of cowboy method of deployment and development. Another difficult challenge we faced was with compute resources, right? ML workloads are very compute heavy. You need lots of RAM, you need GPUs, you need that stuff. And as nice as it would be for all of us to have our own GPUs sitting under our desks, it's probably not very realistic. We addressed that with sort of coming up with a way to efficiently share resources in a larger cluster setting. The final challenge you face is taking your development kind of ready models and making the production ready, right? And that's something we'll talk a little bit about as we go through the presentation. Next slide. So now to step back a little bit and talk about developing an AI platform. For most companies that are just starting with adding machine learning features to the products, they start with small teams tasked with investigating tools in the space and platforms that you can use. The easiest path would be to use like a well-known, large, proprietary cloud platform. These platforms have most of the tools you could ever need and have a pretty low barrier to entry for users. This works well for the initial AI ML prototyping phase, but usually proves to be very expensive when moving to the production phase of your ML lifecycle. Users also find that their workflows and their processes are locked in to the specific cloud that they have chosen. One of the guiding principles of the Open Data Hub is to give users more flexibility by using open source tools and allowing users to install the Open Data Hub in a hybrid cloud. What this really means is that you can deploy the Open Data Hub on any cloud you want, right? Like whether it's on-prem or it's Azure, GCP, whatever. It's all up to you. The next thing we'll be talking about what the project actually is. So the Open Data Hub is a meta project to integrate open source tools and provide an end-to-end AI/ML platform on Openshift. To break that down further, a meta project integrates multiple open source projects into one project that is easily deployed and managed by users. Now, if you look at the diagram on the slides, you can see that there are three main personas or sets of requirements that we are addressing. The first is that of the data engineer. Any or most AI ML workflows should start with prepping and ETLing data into a data lake or storage system. This data needs to be stored efficiently and be easily accessible for data scientists, or else they won't use it. Once your data is stored in the system, the next phase is the actual model development, which is where your data scientist comes in. This phase includes exploration and analysis of incoming data, feature selection, model creation, training, and validation. Once the model is actually created, the last phase is serving the model in a production environment. This phase is not a static fire and forget deploy, right? But a constant series of optimization. Once the model is served, you need to continue monitoring the performance of the model and making optimizations where necessary, or scrapping it altogether and going back to the drawing board if things didn't work out at all. This cycle of monitoring, optimizing, and serving requires input and collaboration from the entire team, right? Like from your DevOps folks up to your business function. If you're interested in learning more about the Open Data Hub, please visit opendatahub.io, and you can also install it right now in your OpenShift 4 clusters. Slide. Yeah, again. So as mentioned earlier, the Open Data Hub is used by many internal Red Hat teams to run AI/ML workloads. I'll talk through a few examples here. The first one is the products and technology DevOps team. The team has product release pipelines that generate a ton of runtime logs, all of which are stored in our system. These logs are being used for some AI initiatives like anomaly detection to further improve their build release pipelines. We also have operational metrics from Openshift 4 clusters stored in the Data Hub. This data is being used for a number of AI initiatives, as well as to allow your engineers or your team leads or PMs or whatever to make better informed decisions about what work to prioritize, like what features are working well and what needs some improvement. We also have customer support data stored in the Data Hub. These are things like source reports, customer feedback forms. This is being used in a very similar way to what the cluster metrics are being used for. Next slide. Now, we just don't have it running internally. We also have the Open Data Hub installed in the Mass Open Cloud, or MOC for short. The MOC is a collaborative effort amongst a number of universities in the greater Boston area, as well as some industry partners, to provide a public cloud based on the Open Cloud Exchange model. It's being used by many data science students for research work and serves as another proving point that open source systems can be built for these large AI ML workloads. We also have a number of field deployments in verticals such as telco, finance, or oil and gas, which have been very successful for some of the work that they were trying to do. Go ahead.
All right. Thanks, Anish. So I'll do a little bit of a technical overview here. And I'll start with an Open Data Hub centric view to give some context and help you see where and how Open Data Hub fits into the bigger picture. Being open and flexible enables Open Data Hub to work well with a wide variety of products and real life use cases, some of which Anish just talked about. And also, we're working with an ever-growing list of Red Hat certified partners on integrating their technologies into Open Data Hub, making them work as great as possible on OpenShift to provide the highest quality tool set possible. So Josh mentioned that ODH was here on Community Central about a year ago. And at that time, we were showing off our 0.5 release, which is based on our Ansible operator. And even though we have a new version, which I'll be talking about in a minute or two here, it's worth mentioning that our 0.5 legacy, as we call it, series, it's still available in Operator Hub, and it continues to work as it always has. And there's one important difference that I'll mention here. So the legacy series here, it supports a deployment to a single namespace, which is different from what we will see in the 0.6 series. So, and we may be able to revisit that at some point, but for now, that is an important difference that you want to keep in mind. And if you want to try, the 0.5 versus the 0.6 series. Going forward, it is fairly unlikely that we'll probably be adding more features and components to the 0.5 series, but we are still doing bug fixes and releases and that sort of thing. So it's definitely still available to use. So a little background for the next part here. So around the end of last year, 2019, we made the decision to take part in the Kubeflow project. By taking their manifests and making sure the components would be able to run nicely on OpenShift. For the most part, that required us to tweak a few security constraints and things like that for right now. The longer term plan would be to contribute some fixes upstream that would no longer require those security constraint relaxations. But that's where we're at for now. That's where we started. And after doing that, we saw that it's actually a good logical fit for us, Open Data Hub, given the similarities between Open Data Hub and Kubeflow. Both provide great tool sets, for running containerized, scalable AI and ML workloads. And it turns out that a lot of the people that we heard from that were interested in Open Data Hub were also interested in Kubeflow. So we took that and used it as the inspiration for reworking Open Data Hub a little bit. And that brings us here. So starting with Open Data Hub 0.6, ODH is now it's a downstream project of Kubeflow. So we feel like this relationship really lets us provide the best, most robust set of in-demand technologies, and we're doing it through embracing the power of open source communities, which we all are a big fan of. We're still carrying forward, the great set of components that were in ODH before. So everything you had will still be there. And now we're also going to be able to provide the additional components that are part of Kubeflow, and we'll be doing it on Openshift, which is obviously a big win for those that need the enterprise level everything that comes with Openshift. And of course, in typical Red Hat fashion, our intent is to be as active as possible in the upstream communities, just as we have been since the inception of Open Data Hub, providing insight and solutions so that we can all benefit from those. So given all that, we now have Open Data Hub Operator v0.6, which is based around the Kubeflow operator that manages the lifecycle of a Kubeflow installation. Under the covers, without going into too much detail, it's using customize, that's customized with a K, against a set of manifest files that define the elements that make up a component. So, the images, environments, other configuration, volumes, whatever else there might be. Development of those manifests, fairly straightforward. I really like it. You can develop locally, and you can run the KF-Cuddle CLI locally, and generally be in pretty good shape when you move to using the operator to do that deploy. And that's because the operator and the CLI rely on a lot of the same underlying code there. And so for this, of course, again, our intent is to do all of the development in the upstream community. And we do have our own repo, though, that we intend to only use for Open Data Hub branding. Some folks on our team have already been able to make some significant upstream contributions. So it feels like the upstream-downstream relationship is off to a great start there. And then again, I noted before, the legacy operator only supports namespaced deployment. And like I said, I'll mention it again here. Right now, the 0.6 series is only a cluster-wide deployment. And so if that makes a difference to you, pay attention there. And if you're in the operator hub looking to install this, this version of the 0.6 shows up as the beta channel. If you're looking to install the 0.5, that shows up as the legacy channel. So if you're familiar with the operator hub, that's where you'll find that difference there. And so far, our first steps for this have been to convert all of the existing ODH components from the legacy version. We've converted those over so that they can be managed with the new operator. And as of today, we have most of them ready to go. I think there's a couple, maybe a Hive and a couple others that they escape me at the moment, but those are certainly in the works. So you've probably seen a picture similar to this lots of times. I think it's an effective way, though, to visualize how the various components of Open Data Hub and Kubeflow together, how they come together to cover a wide range of users and use cases. And of course, if you know of a project that you would really think should fit here, but you don't see it here, definitely drop by the community meetings and let us know. We're always open for participation that way. So as you can imagine, we've been super busy getting our 0.6 release out, and we still have plenty to do. So we'll take a little look at our roadmap here. So for our next major release, we're looking at the end of June, where we're really looking to beef up our testing of all the components. We recently finally got our tests being run inside the Openshift CI system. And so for every PR, it's getting run, and then we're also doing a nightly build. And that's actually helped us find a few problems already. So yeah, go figure, testing is good. So we're definitely going to work on that some more. We want to be adding OpenShift container storage. We think that'll be a great and useful feature out there. So right now, for the Kubeflow parts that we have, it's version 0.7, but some of you, maybe most of you, probably know that Kubeflow 1.0 is out. And so we have an effort to update to Kubeflow 1.0, get those all running on OpenShift and make them installable through our operator. Right now, I guess I haven't mentioned this or I haven't made it clear. So right now, it's actually only possible to install either ODH components or Kubeflow components. But with our next release, we're going to be supporting any combination of mixing and matching ODH components with Kubeflow components. So that's definitely a major thing that is on tap for us. For the 0.8 release, we're hoping the end of August. We're aiming to run all of the ODH components on our universal base image based images. A lot of them I think probably already do, but we're going to make sure that everything's all addressed there. We also have plans to sort out what continuous deployment of Open Data Hub looks like and how that'll work. The other thing there in that release we're hoping for is to do a disconnected deployment, which is, I think, that might be almost the number one thing that we get asked about from different places. Obviously, you want to be able to have a disconnected deployment, so we're going to be working on that too. And then as part of our interaction with the upstream communities in the Kubeflow side, we want to make UBI-based images available for all of those components too. Some of those may be tougher. They might not always want those in the upstream, but as part of our downstream effort, we're going to offer those. So that's always an option for you to get that sort of thing. So a little quick start here. You probably can't do it. You can't copy and paste from my slide here. But if you want to give it a try, it's really simple to get Open Data Hub installed, especially OpenShift 4 and the Operator Hub. You would go to the Operator Hub inside the OpenShift console. You can do search for Open Data Hub. We're the only one that shows up there. You'd click Install and subscribe. Of course, you'd make sure that the beta channel is selected here. And then you would create the KF-def object, which if you wanted to, we have one in our repo. It's kind of the whole kitchen sink approach. It has all of the components turned on there. But if you wanted to just try out, Jupyter Hub with Spark, you could remove the unneeded components. And so you run the OC create on that. Your stuff will be up and running in a minute or two, and then you'd be able to head over to OpenDataHub.io and try out a tutorial or whatever else you'd like to go with there. So to wrap things up from my side here, Open Data Hub is, of course, an open source community, and we welcome engagement and contribution. Our meetings are usually every 2 weeks on Mondays at noon Eastern US time. It would certainly make my day to see you there. Of course, if you can't make it there, definitely interact with us either through the mailing lists or through GitHub. We try to be super responsive to issues and questions, and especially PRs. We love PRs. So, and of course, our top level site is opendatahub.io. There you can find documentation and a few tutorials. And that's it for me. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you. Are we ready for questions?
Sure.
Okay, well, if you want to go ahead and stop sharing your screen and let's share your video. Okay, so we'll be taking questions from the Q&A pane. There is still time to ask questions if members of the audience have a question that they have not asked. I'm going to be going through these. Before we take the questions from the audience, I actually had one of my own, which is, do you know any researchers who are using Open Data Hub to try to answer questions about COVID-19?
Anish, are you familiar?
That's a great question.
Oh, Chad, you want to turn your video on?
Oh, I thought I did, but
yeah. So I can't think of anyone off the top of my head. To be honest, I can reach out and get back to you on that. See if there's anyone.
Okay. So we've actually had a couple of questions around support. So do either of you know, does Red Hat have a current support offering for Open Data Hub or have a publicly announced future support offering or consulting?
I think the answer to that is no. I think it's a community support sort of thing right now.
Okay.
Well, for the Red Hat, announce anything.
Yeah, we can. It's a public channel. We can only talk about things that actually are public. For Red Hatters who are on this, feel free to ping Chad or Anish about what future Red Hat plans may be that we can't put on a YouTube recording. One other question from the Red Hatters in the audience, which is, does Red Hat have its own internal instance of Open Data Hub that we run that people can use?
Yeah, definitely. We have it, right? It's open to anyone to use right now, right? Just feel free to reach out to us on GChat or Slack, anywhere really, and we can help you get started with that.
Awesome. Okay. So, additional questions. Phil wants to know, is Selden still part of the architecture for ODH and planned for like 0.7, 0.8? He had the impression that it was being phased out.
Selden is certainly still part of our offering. I know as of right now, our AI library is built on top of Selden, and actually the new version, 0.6, we've upgraded the version of Selden that we're using. We're using the Selden operator to handle that now. So I'm not aware of Selden going away for sure.
Cool. Anand wants to know, how do you scale Open Data Hub?
Yeah, I can take that, I guess. There's a number of different components for the Open Data Hub, right? So, for example, narrowing on one, like say Jupyter Hub, it's certainly possible to create certain different types of images and notebooks that your data scientists can use, which would, kind of match what they need. So some people may need a GPU and 32 gigs of RAM, but it's very simple to configure your Jupyter Hub to have a custom image for that. Beyond that, like for something like Kafka, you can always scale up or down, right? Like, again, just configuring it through the manifests in your Open Data Hub, your KF DAF file. Josh, also to circle back on your question about if I'm aware of any researchers working on COVID-19 related work, there is some work going on with the MOC. There have been some asks coming from that related to COVID-19 research. So we've been helping them from an infrastructure standpoint, right? Since that's where we fit in.
Okay, cool. So Stephanie wants to know, do you, because you answered part of Stephanie's question about whether ODH and kubeflow are complementary or competing. And clearly, since you're supporting both, you see them as complementary. Do you picture the two merging eventually so that we're not looking at a separate Open Data Hub stack and kubeflow stack with some mix and match? Do you picture them merging? For that matter, do you picture the kubeflow project maybe taking on some of the ODH components they don't currently support?
Right, that's maybe the way that I could see it. I don't see a full merging happening. I don't know that kubeflow necessarily, as a project, has an interest in taking on, OpenShift container storage and having it in there, and that might be a tougher thing to get up there. But I think over time, maybe as the space, might converge on, an agreed upon set of best practice tools and things, they might look a little more alike. But to say they totally merge, I don't think I would go that far. And I think we're always, and we're going to be continuously striving to have value add on top of that too. So I don't think they're ever going to quite be the exact same.
Cool. Okay. Chuck wants to know, are folks from IBM that you know of officially participating in ODH as an open source project?
I'm trying to think if we've seen any pull requests from IBM folks. Anish, have you? I don't recall. I know that we interact with them in the kubeflow community for sure.
Yeah, and I think I've seen some of them attend like the ODH community meetings as well.
Sure.
So there's some engagement, but I'm not sure on that.
Okay. And I have one more question of my own, which is, if I was a researcher wanting to use Open Data Hub on my laptop, presumably, a high memory, high CPU laptop, but on my own laptop, what would be the best way to do that? Since Minishift is no longer a thing as far as I know.
Sure. So there is code-ready containers, CRC. It's out there, and that is OpenShift 4. I've used it for several months in developing ODH. It works pretty well. I do have like 32 gig on my laptop, and it's beefy enough. I think you want to have in our notes for kubeflow 0.7, I think we actually had some recommendations for what you'd want to have if you were to run CRC and then run ODH on top of that. I think it was 16 gig was like the minimum that you'd want to go with there, and you'd want some space because it spawns up a VM there for you. So you need, I think it was close to 50 gig in disk space you'd want. But CRC is also flexible. If you have a much bigger system that you want, you can tell it to use a lot more RAM, a lot more disk, and you can get a more full-bodied experience. You can scale that up a little bit. So yeah, CRC, it's possible. It works pretty well.
Cool. Well, thank you very much. That's all the questions that we have for today. And thanks very much for catching us up, or for probably a lot of people in the audience introducing us to Open Data Hub. A really exciting project, and people can follow the links from the presentation. We'll also put those links again in the description for the video when we get the video posted again, probably tomorrow. And people can check it out and try it out and contribute to the project. So thanks very much. We don't have the next. For housekeeping, we will have a new schedule of the public Community Central broadcasts being put up in about 2 weeks. We're at sort of the end of a cycle here, which is why we don't have anything scheduled for the future yet. And there will be lots more Tech Tuesday action for this audience. So thanks very much, everyone, for attending. And we will see you in the various communities online.
Thanks, Josh. Thanks everybody.
Yeah, thanks, folks.